time for Topsy and Tim to visit the dentist. Mummy took them to see Mrs. Berry, the dentist at the health centre. They sat in the waiting room and read comics. The dentist's door opened and out came Josie Miller and her mummy. Josie smiled at Topsy and Tim. "I've got to wear a brace on my teeth," she said. "Why?" asked Topsy. "To make my teeth grow straight," said Josie. "Mrs. Berry is ready to see you now, Topsy and Tim," said the nurse. "Hello, twins," said Mrs. Berry. "Your surgery smells funny," said Topsy. "It's a nice clean smell," said Mummy. "Who wants to go first?" said Mrs. Berry. "Me," said Tim. He climbed into the dentist's chair. Mrs. Berry pressed a button and the chair tilted back. Tim felt like a rocket pilot. Mrs. Berry put a disposable mask over her nose and mouth. "What's that for?" asked Tim. "So that I don't breathe over you," said Mrs. Berry. "Open wide and let me see your teeth," said Mrs. Berry. Tim opened his mouth as wide as he could. "This small mirror will help me look for holes in Tim's teeth," said Mrs. Berry. "Little holes can turn into big holes, and big holes can turn into toothaches." There were no little holes in Tim's teeth. "Your turn now, Topsy," said Mrs. Berry. She found a little hole in one of Topsy's teeth. "I'll clean that hole and put a filling in it," said Mrs. Berry. "It'll stop pieces of food getting in and turning nasty." First, Mrs. Berry hung a sucking tube in Topsy's mouth. "That's to stop you dribbling," she said. The tube made funny sucking noises. Then she used a whizzy drill to clean out the hole in Topsy's tooth. The nurse gave Topsy a glass of pink water to rinse her mouth. The nurse mixed a tiny bit of silver filling. Tim watched her. "That's Topsy's filling," she said. Mrs. Berry pushed the silver filling into the hole in Topsy's tooth. She pressed it down and made it perfectly smooth. "There, good as new," said Mrs. Berry. "Did it hurt?" asked Tim. "The drill was noisy," said Topsy, "but it didn't hurt." "You've both got good teeth," said Mrs. Berry. "Keep it that way. Eat lots of different foods, but remember, sweet foods can hurt your teeth, so don't eat them too often. Never forget to clean your teeth in the morning and at bedtime, and don't eat or drink in bed." "Not even water?" said Tim. "Only water," said Mrs. Berry. "Sweet drinks can hurt your teeth as much as sweet food." Mrs. Berry gave Topsy and Tim a badge to remind them to look after their teeth. "Come back and see me soon," she said. Before they went home, the receptionist wrote down the date of their next visit. A little boy came into the waiting room, trying not to cry. "It's Tony Welch," said Topsy. "What's the matter, Tony?" asked Tim. "I've got toothache," sniffed Tony. "He eats too many sweets," said Tony's mum. "Never mind," said Topsy. "Mrs. Berry will make it better." Then they went to the chemist to buy new toothbrushes. "Mrs. Berry won't find any holes in our teeth next visit," said Topsy and Tim.